Oh, I guess I should mention too. Do you have any questions for me before we get going at all?
Not really.
Okay, awesome. Then we're good to go. Well, again, Christos, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you coming on and talking on the All the Things podcast. I am a huge fan of Opus Drinks. I think I've gotten all my friends and family hooked on them as well. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. But I want to ask you, where does your passion for the spirit industry and cocktails come from? Were you always able to channel your creativity into that avenue?
That's a very good question. Well, I wasn't always in the alcohol business. So when I very first started working in the hospitality industry, I was about 15, 16 ish, back in Greece. And my actual job was to take the dirty glasses from the bar, bring them back, and then get them new, fresh, clean ones, as well as, like, I was a barback, right? So I kind of fell in love with the industry and with the fun aspect of it. And I was a barista for a long time, but like, coffee is one of my big loves. And I was a coffee roaster for a bit. And the thing with coffee is that coffee is coffee. Coffee has a limit. Coffee has a ceiling. Even if it's going to be 8, 9, 10 o'clock, you just going to have, let's say, an espresso martini. But the thing is, you're going to have one.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it, right? So approximately, let's say, 5, 6, worst case scenario, 7 o'clock, coffee's done. But the hospitality continues. And especially if you are in Europe, which the hospitality and the fun industry is kind of huge, and nightclubs and bars starts, let's say, 11 p.m. and they go all the way till 8 a.m. in the morning. So I'm like, okay, coffee is coffee. I love coffee, but I'm kind of done with it. Like, what's next? So that's why and how I jumped into cocktails, and I started educating myself about mixology, spirits, and the world of mixing cocktails.
How did you get into the hospitality industry then? Did you have parents? Like, did you have a family restaurant? Or was that something, it was just a job at the time to be a bar back, and then you slowly found out more and started to enjoy more of that process, then coffee to cocktails and into that nightlife too?
Well, that's another good question. So, um, at the age of 15, nobody wants to work, right? But I actually had to work because I'm coming from a poor family that didn't have, like, all the comforts that's supposed to have, let's say. And I just wanted to provide, and if not provide, be able to support myself as much as possible, even in that young age. So a good friend of mine, his big brother, he used to work at that nightclub that I started working when I was like 15, 16. And that's how I got my first job in the hospitality industry. But after that, one brought the other.
Wow. That's really honorable that you recognize when you're 15, you can feel like you're so mature, but you're still so young. And I think that could either go one of two ways of feeling like almost angry that you didn't have all those things, or just putting your head down and working and say, this is our solution. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to work. And clearly it's worked out for you. You've really cleared a path for yourself and been a trailblazer in the spirit industry, especially here in North America and here in Vancouver. So kudos to you for, everyone has to start somewhere. And that really just sounds like it kind of took off from the beginning, which is rare. But with saying that, I'm sure it wasn't this linear path. How did you cross the bridge of being a bartender into now being an entrepreneur with multiple companies that are doing very well, I might add, in about 10 years? What were some of the huge takeaways from that experience?
Um, that's another very good question. Yeah. Um let's say that the hospitality industry is what brought me to this point. I'm like, I love being behind the bar. Actually, I haven't done it for a long time now. It's been like more than 2.5, 3 years now, let's say, that I haven't been behind the bar and actively like make cocktails for people. Well, now I do it with Opus. But hospitality is something that I don't think that is never going to end. It's what brings people together, and I see this only growing. And how I took it from the bartending to me having my own brand. Um, when I was working for the company that actually invited me here to Canada, my job was to do beverage development and formulation for them and actually see what's next on the market in order to be able to make it, fix it for them, and they're gonna pretty much manufacture it and sell it. And I had more people asking me about, hey, Christos, you do this for these people. Like, why don't you kind of decide, do the same thing for us as a freelance? I'm like, you know what? Yeah, let me give it some thought and see how this is gonna go. So I kind of went through the same hesitations that you mentioned before. Like, yeah, what about this? What about that? What if I fail? What if things are not gonna go well? What people's gonna say? Are we allowed to swear or
Oh, yeah,
keep it
go ahead.
professional? Okay, so um, and that's why and how I started my first company, which is Speakeasy and Co. That we do beverage development and formulation for people for beverages, and at the same time we help some hospitality groups with their cocktail menu and their let's say bar education and staff education. And in order for us to be able to do beverage development, we actually have to live in the future. So back in 2019, let's say it was approximately May, April 2018, I've noticed that the alcohol-free segment, specifically for adults beverages, it started growing. So I said to most of my clients and even my employer back in the days, I'm like, guys, this is what's happening. This is what's going to happen into the next 2 to 3 years. The alcohol-free beverage segment, it's growing and it's probably going to explode all over the world. And every single one, they told me, bullshit. That's not going to happen. Fast forward I'm sorry. Fast forward March 2020 when COVID hit.
Dun dun
I'm
dun.
getting laid off. I'm getting laid off from my full time job, and that was a transitioning point for me because I'm like, you know what? I've been saying this to so many people for so long. I believe in this. I think that this is going to happen, and I'm like, you know what? I'll do it for myself. So that's why and how I started Opus.
Did you have like some sort of crystal ball that was going to say this will be a huge shift? Because I feel like you nailed it right on the head. And I want to go deeper into that March 2020 when COVID first started, because I think it went one of two ways. And people were either like, this is the time to really get serious about my health and cut out alcohol more than they ever had before, or they just totally dove right into the pandemic, being home, and were drinking more than ever. So I want to ask you, what have some of the trends shifted since that point? You saw in 2018 that the wellness industry was having more of this ramped up in the adult beverage space, so not just like soda waters or bubblies or things like that, like another elevation and combining that nightlife. So I guess my long way of asking this question is, what was there a moment, like a moment of clarity that you just knew? Was it a gut instinct that this was going to be the next thing, or what then propelled you to go fully and just take on Opus in this like wellness, but also spirit space when the pandemic hit?
Um, the consumer or the market, let's say, it's not there yet. Like there's still places that they say alcohol free cocktail. Why should I care an alcohol free cocktail? If I want a cocktail, I'll go to a bar or I'll go to a liquor store. There's no point doing that. Um, the market is not that developed yet, and the reason is because people think that this is something that is going to be loaded with sugar, or this is something that is going to be loaded with fake flavors and stuff. um, I'm not going to compare Opus with other brands, but I saw that with me being in the hospitality industry and pretty much having people almost every night telling me that, hey man, can you please make my soda look like a gin and tonic, or make my mojito alcohol free because they're gonna make fun of me. I'm like, yeah, sure. So that started happening again and again and again and again. And I'm like, you know what? There's definitely something here. And at the same time, me being a part of San Diego International Spirits Competition, and I traveled down to Portland at the SIP Northwest, so I have access to um, people in the industry that they're leaders and they actually see what's happening, and I'm honored to be among them. So when I saw that, I'm like, you know what? Why don't I create a brand that it will be in both? So pretty much Opus mission is to create a safe and sustainable environment for both drinkers and non-drinkers to be able to have the exact same handcrafted cocktail. So if you want to have something with alcohol, we have, as an example, the Peach Bellini, which is our latest SKU, our latest cocktail, which is limited edition in alcoholic, but at the same time, we have the alcohol free. So either or, we got you covered. And even if you don't want to go for the alcoholic and you have the alcohol free in your event or your party or your gathering with your friends, and somebody wants to spike it up, you can add in there a shot of tequila or a sort of vodka. Nobody's The pitch Bellini police is not going to be there to tell you, hey, no, no alcohol for you, right? Um, but fast forward to COVID, I definitely saw that people overdid the I stay home, I'm not allowed to go out, I deserve this, I'll drink as much as I can. But at the same time, when you see that how alcohol is being used, people overdoing it and everything, and people trying to be more healthy in order to be able to keep up, let's say, with COVID, some people started like cutting back on alcohol, and I'm definitely one of them. Like, I don't want to lie to you. You can see my bar here, but um, alcohol
It's
is
research, it's different for you.
well. There is days that it might be 10 or 11 a.m. and I'm buzzed. Not because I just wanna call it a day and I'm like, today I'm gonna be drinking, but because when I'm developing things and there is alcohol in there, I have to taste it. I have to make sure that this is drinkable. So there you have
Way of the biz. That's showbiz, baby. When you're in the spirit industry. I feel like I want to know where those people are and hang out with them who are coming up to the bar and asking you, can you make this look like a gin and tonic or a vodka soda when they weren't drinking at all? Because that's kind of where I'm at. I cannot drink a lot. I do not have a high tolerance. I could be completely sober and still wanting people to get up on a table and dance. Like, there's no effect on me. But it's interesting in COVID, especially just because we've all gone through this huge shift in our lives and alcohol played a really big part of it. But of gearing towards that inclusive, I would also say that Opus is very inclusive because then it doesn't leave anyone out. I don't want to say a stigma, but there's something about when you're out at a dinner as a group of friends when you're adults and everyone's drinking and you get something that's non-alcoholic. It's almost like you're being the buzzkill, but it's you can still fully participate in the conversation and add energy. But there's just something in our culture in North America that if you're being singled out, and I love that Opus just includes it. It looks the same, it tastes great, and I wish I thought of this first or were right there with you helping develop. If you ever need a taste tester, you know where to go to. But where I want to take this conversation then is the early stages of Opus. Did you have any idea where to even start with something like this?
On what aspect?
So
Because
for
I'm wearing 15
formulating,
different hats. Which one you want me to start with?
pardon?
I'm wearing 15 different hats. So which one
True,
are
true.
you?
I guess let's go with because there's lots of like herbs in the drink. Is that correct? It's
Correct.
formulated differently than a traditional spirit or traditional cocktail would be. Did you have a background being a mixologist of where to start kind of that formulation? We won't get into the actual formulation, but how did you not get overwhelmed, I guess, in the beginning of taking on such a new project?
Um, yeah. So alcohol with alcohol free, it's not that different. So for Opus specifically, we make our own for as an example for the gin and tonic or for the aperitivo spritz, right? So we make our own gin for the alcoholic, and then for the alcohol free, we do exactly the same process, but we do it without the alcohol. So in order for you to make gin, you have to put together the alcohol, infuse it with a whole bunch of spices and herbs, distill it, tada, gin. So in order for you to make alcohol free gin, though, what we do, we use three and sometimes four times the spices that we use for the alcoholic in order to get that same intense flavor of the gin. So we pretty much distill the alcohol free gin and we make our own spirits in order for us to be able to mix it in our gin and tonic can, as an example. Um, so now back to the bartending. Like, definitely helped having the bartending background, but we did a hell of tests, like friends trying it again and again and again and again, and it definitely helped me doing formulation before. And the idea was, you know what, I'm doing this for people and for brands already, why not do it for myself?
Yeah, totally. And if you have this idea, and like you were saying earlier, if people are telling you no and you have this strong instinct in 2018, then what's holding you back? And I have a follow up question to that. I have a lot of listeners and people who are interested in being an entrepreneur, have an idea for a business, but they're held back by something. Is there something you wish you would have told yourself in 2018 or even earlier, or tell people who are wanting to start a business? It doesn't have to be in the same space, it could be for anything. Something that you wish you heard then, or something that you wish someone told you?
If they can do it, I can do it better. And I 100% believe that.
Yeah.
I 100% believe that. Like, I didn't think that like, no, I'm sorry. So I used to think that, oh, it's gonna be so difficult, this, that, the other. What if it's gonna fail? What about this? What about that? What about the other? But I'm kind of person that if an opportunity comes to me, and I'm not talking about an idea, I'm talking about an opportunity. I am 99.999%. I'm gonna say yes, just because if I pass, I would have like the rumors that it's like what would have happened if I said yes. Obviously, I'm not saying yes to every single thing, but I'm still trying to listen to my gut. Have you heard that saying before? Like, listen to your gut, whatever your gut is telling you.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I've had situations that my gut was telling me, "Don't do it, don't do it," and I'm like, "Shut up." So I did it, and I saw it 2, 3, 4 months after. I'm like, my gut was right. So I'm trying to follow my gut as much as I can, but obviously I have people that they're helping me with the whole process now that Opus is up running. We are in more than 800 locations across Canada. So obviously I'm not just me having conversations with my gut, but at the very early stages, um, is all about putting the work in. Like I had a full time job, and then when I was going back home, like what's my options? Hang out, watch Netflix, go for a walk, hang out with friends, this, that, the other. But when I actually took the decision, and I'm like, you know what, that's going to happen. One or the other way, this is going to happen. So I started dedicating time, it like a little bit every day, a little bit every day. And I'm saying that again for me to hear first because I did it before. That's how Opus started. And now I have some other things that I want to start doing. I have another 1, 2 ideas that I'm working on. But what I've realized is if you put 1 hour a day at the end of the week, it's a whole work day. It's 7 hours. And 1 hour a day at the end of the month is 30 days. I'm sorry, it's 30 hours. So, which is pretty much whole work week. So imagine what's going to happen 1 hour times 365 or times, I don't know, 300, which is a whole year, right? So you're going to see yourself being way ahead towards to your goals instead of you just laying back and thinking. And I strongly believe that 20 minutes of doing something it's way more valuable than 20 minutes of thinking about something.
I so agree. And there's a quote, it's physics, but I think it really applies to this conversation. And it's that objects in motion stay in motion, objects at rest stay at rest. And it can seem, especially you with having a business and like you were saying, wearing 15 different hats all the time, it can seem overwhelming when you have this to do list that's a mile long. And then sometimes for me, I know, and I think my listeners can relate, is I just freeze when things seem overwhelming and then it builds and builds and becomes daunting. But if you're able to chunk out that 20 minutes and say it's send off an email, you're already in motion. Everything else has a better flow and it's easier to then work all those things off your to do list. And it's kind of a mind over matter. I don't know if you find that, but then as soon as you're in the flow of working, it's really not that bad. It's your mind makes it seem like this huge staircase when you just have to take a step at a time.
It's all about the quitting. You know, if I'm gonna quit, nothing is gonna happen. If I'm gonna keep going, at least I have a shot of
Yeah.
this happening. So Opus was an idea, and step after step after step after step, like a little bit every day. Obviously, this is my full time now, right? Like
Mhm.
that's all I do every day, all day. But yeah, you have to do it because if you don't do it, you don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly. And what helps you stay grounded now or focused now that you're in a different stage of the business? Now, it's still earlier days, but you've gotten your idea up and off the ground. Do you have any rituals in your morning that really set you up for success or at night that then help you do it all over again and get back to work and be your best?
Any rituals? Well, do you have any rituals?
For me, skincare is a big thing. If I wake up in the morning, I have this crazy LED face mask that I love to put on. And if I don't start my day with that or end my day with that and have all my creams on my face, it doesn't matter how productive I was at work or with the podcast. I just feel like a mess. Like I need that moment of zen to feel like I did something for me. I'm doing great. So it could be something really small, but for you, like, do you do any breath work or meditation or have a show that you need to watch that just makes you feel like, okay, I'm good. I got it. I can do this.
Well, that's not, now I understand what you mean. Well, regarding shows, like I'm in love with Shark Tank. Like
Me too.
I absolutely love this this show, and I can definitely tell you that this is pretty much the the main factor that pushed me to actually start Opus. Like I've seen people going there with ideas that I'm like, man, come on, like what's in your head, like why you do that. So there is, I remember this episode like I saw it like 5 minutes ago. It was that episode that I saw back in 2018, 2019, and it was that guy that he started a wine brand but for cats.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
And he had like the new Merlot and Paul Pinot Grigio and this kind of stuff. And I'm like, when I hear the numbers that he was like doing like hundreds of thousands in like revenue, and I'm like, if this idea works, sky's the limit.
Yeah.
So, but back to the rituals. Like, I'm trying to meditate as much as I can. Like I'm taking like 5-10 minutes in between my work and like focus on my breath a little bit and trying to put my thoughts in order. Obviously a big factor is every night, like before I go to bed, like I have a shower, and that's something that balances me.
Hmm.
um, and the main factor is that I'm excited to wake up and get back to work. And I'm not lying, like there is there is days that I'm thinking in my sleep. I know that that's sick, but even my fiance, she's like, man, you're sick. I'm like, sorry baby, I have to get up, I have to write this thing down, because if I'm going to forget about it, this is something that needs to happen. So I pretty much like get up from my bed, go write this thing down, go back to bed.
But if you're not the person doing that, then who else is? You need to be leading the charge as the founder of a company or like the leader of a team. For others, it might sound like, what's wrong with this guy? But you need that energy and that charisma to propel you forward and to keep everything in motion and growing.
I honestly feel blessed that I was able to start from an idea and actually have go to Whole Foods as an example and see people purchasing Opus, and that's so rewarding, so rewarding. Like when I go in stores and actually see people like holding Opus and or drinking Opus, or I go to events and I see people like walking around with Opus in their hands, you can't beat that feeling.
That must be so surreal to have that your product in Whole Foods, which is just such an iconic establishment. I know for myself, like it was my dream when I lived in a small town to be able to go to Whole Foods on a lunch break and purchase products like Opus just whenever I wanted to or had the free time. So to be able to be part of this huge thing in front of so many people in front of the right audience must feel amazing. But also, did you have that goal in mind? Like when you first started this idea, I have to talk about the branding of Opus a little bit. Was that all planned out in your head from the get go? Or what was the process? Like, how many times did you change the aesthetic or the logo of it? Was it tens and hundreds? Or did you kind of have an idea right off the bat of what you pictured for this product?
We have one thing that I'm trying to have as the base of everything we do. If it's not premium, we don't do it.
Right.
Like even if this is a collaboration, or even if this is a product, or even if this is something that we want to do. I'm sorry. If it's not, and if it doesn't feel premium and up to what we have, we don't do it. Like as an example, we were like, okay, let's do a whole bunch of giveaways. Let's buy this brand and the X brand and the other brand and give it away in our social media in order for us to gain followers and stuff. I'm like, no. Why should I go buy the X item in order for us to give it away in our social media or do something in order to gain followers? So we pretty much do free advertisement and we pay on top the other brand in order for them to advertise them instead of us focusing on what we have. So we have something which is premium. We have something that is not that is nothing like this out there. Yes, there is other alcohol free and alcoholic brands out there, but what we do with the alcohol free, it's quite unique. It's 0 calories, zero sugar, 100% handcrafted, and compared to other brands that they use 30 and sometimes 35 grams of sugar per can. You want to name it cocktail, you want to name it whatever you want. But at the end of the day, that's a pop.
Yeah.
Um, so if it's not premium, we don't do it. And now for the branding, took some time. It
I
took
bet it's
took
gorgeous,
some
but
time.
that takes a lot longer than people think when they're just looking at it.
Oh yes. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Like it took lots of meetings, lots of changes, and for every time that we like doing production and stuff, we're trying to improve our branding as much as possible. So we just did some new tweaks now on the branding, and we actually have new stuff coming out very very soon with Opus. You'll see, you'll see.
Exciting.
Um, but we're trying to keep it real. We're trying to keep it premium, and yeah,
I really admire from the get go that it was your mission to keep everything premium. I think no matter what you're starting as a project or a business, it's that hard balance of getting it out there and getting feedback, but then also establishing what you are, establishing the quality and the brand personality all at once. So for you to, I'm sure it took a lot of willpower and stance of being like, no, this isn't right. This isn't how we want to position ourselves. And it's paid off clearly as well. I want to transition quickly and I want to go a bit more into your Greek roots. So, off the top of your head, what's one thing that you think the Greek culture does really well in terms of hospitality that North America should adopt, and vice versa? Now, living in Canada for about 6, 7 years, what's one thing you think we're doing really well here that you wish translated back home?
that's that answer might upset lots of people, but I'm gonna try to keep it as in line as I can. So let's be realistic, okay? So Greece is an amazing country, very beautiful, but it's managed from the worst people.
Mm,
And the only industry, let's say, that we have right now in Greece is tourism. So
right.
it's pretty much hospitality. So even like we have one thing that actually keeps the lights on. And if we screw this thing as well, we're gone. And I'm completely honest with you. So um, compared to North America, it's day and night, and I'm not talking about the hospitality and the tourism and the whole industry. I'm talking about pretty much everything. It's in the other side of the world. Number one,
Mm-hmm.
it's like 16, 18 hours flight. Completely different mentality, completely different people, different language. Everything is different. Um, now compare like if I was to compare Vancouver with Greece, um, Vancouver when the weather is like this, it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. It has everything. What do you want? It has it. But based on the mentality, and I wish I had somebody back when I was in Greece to hold my hand or like show me the way and tell me, hey, you know what? That's the way. Go for
Right.
it. I would extremely appreciate if I had exactly the same mentality that I have right now when I was like 21, 22. But even back then, when I was 21, 22, I was still trying. Um, I told you before that you did a very good due diligence. I don't know how you figured out that I had my own bar back in Greece, but I tried. It didn't work, but I tried. Um, but one thing that I wish I knew is that you have to have persistence. Persistence is the key to
No,
things.
definitely. It's
I don't
refreshing to
really
hear
know
your take.
if I don't really know if I completely answered your question, but feel free to ask me again if you want.
No, you did. And I find it really refreshing because I think there's a big trend right now. And part of why I asked this is I'm on TikTok. I'm of that generation. I'm trying to get our platform on TikTok as well. But there's this huge trend of Mamma Mia summers and vacationing in Greece. I think my boyfriend, if he hears me ask to go to Greece anymore, he's going to lose his mind because that's all I want to do is have that experience. So I was wondering if there was any key things of I honestly didn't know what to expect your answer would be if it would align with this envisionment that we have as North Americans going to Greece and what the hospitality industry is like there, if it's drastically different in how you consume drinks and how you consume food, if it's more mindful or if it's just part of the culture more than North America. But hearing the fact that Greece so heavily relies on that hospitality industry versus North America, it's definitely a part, but I think it's more one aspect. There's more kind of industrial things that are like less fun to the consumer, it looks like here. So it was refreshing hearing your take of it's not just a fun industry there, it's really the one that you have to rely on too.
That is very true. Like there is friends of mine that they pretty much work April, May, June, July, August, September, and then from September all the way to end of March, they are working here and there. Like they're grabbing, they're like on call for whatever jobs, and some people they even leave Greece and they go to Thailand and these kind of places, which is way cheaper to live and
Right.
it's still hot. But yeah, let's be realistic. Like the only thing in Greece right now that actually keeps the lights on, it's tourism.
Right. No, that's yeah, that's interesting to hear from someone who just I think idealizes Greece that that's the reality of it.
Don't get me wrong, it's an amazing place. I love Greece. If Greece wasn't in my life, I wouldn't be the person that I'm here today, right? Like
Totally.
I definitely consider myself lucky that I'm Greek.
Yeah.
Um, we have amazing food, history, amazing hospitality. Like there is lots of things to be proud when you're Greek, right? But at the same time, I'm extremely happy and I'm extremely proud that I'm becoming Canadian as well. So I definitely see the differences between here and there. Um, but everybody has a complete different way of measuring things and having different expectations, let's say. So when you
Right.
go to Greece as a tourist and you just want to go there and do your tourist thing, it's amazing. It's incredible. Nice food, nice people, nice beaches, sun, um, you name it. Like nightlife is one of the best nightlifes I've ever experienced in my life so far. But when you live there, that's a completely different game.
Right. No, that makes total sense. And it's I think it's really nice and special that you have the mixture of both too and you can apply that to your personal life, to your projects, to business. I think that also gives you an upper hand of having different cultures infused in whatever you do too.
That is very true. That is very true. I do. There is days that I'm thinking like as Greek, and there is days that I'm like, ooh, I'm becoming Vancouver.
You're coming one of us.
Yes, yes, and I'm actually very happy about it. I'm very happy about it. Like imagine if I was here for the last 6 days, for the last 6 years, and I was still the same person. That would have been sad.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's growth overall, right?
That's very true.
But Christos, before you go, I need to thank you so much again for coming on the podcast. I have one final question. I
Of
ask
course.
all my guests this, and if there could be one product, a book, TV show, anything, feel free to plug Opus here as well. What's something that you're loving that you want to recommend to all the listeners?
That's a very good question as well. Mm, yeah. One step at a time. Take it easy. Things that needs to get done, get them done. Opus is obviously an amazing product for you if you don't want to drink alcohol, or even if you want to drink alcohol, it's there for you. Now, regarding books and everything else, it all comes down to what the individual wants to read, right? Like everybody's different. Like I'm reading books about improvement and about self improvement and about business and how to execute things and how to probably manage things and stuff. But yeah,
Well, we'll leave it there, and I'm going to answer, and I'm going to say that everyone should try the peach Bellini. That's my current favorite Opus flavor. I, of course, go for the non alcoholic that just suits and feels a bit more aligned with my lifestyle right now. But, Christos, thank you truly so much for coming on. You have an open invite. You're welcome back anytime.
thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today and for inviting me. And I'm definitely looking forward to chatting with you soon.
Definitely.